Today is July the 22nd, 2019. My name is Tanya Finchum. I'm with Oklahoma State University, and along with me is Shay Otley, who is with Oklahoma Historical Society, and we're here in Sallisaw, Oklahoma, to interview Echo Garvin Rider. And this is part of our Oklahoma Centennial Farm Family project. So thank you for letting us come today. Let's begin with having you tell us when and where you were born.
I was born in October the 19th, 1919. I was born here on this place.
Okay, in Sallisaw.
In Sallisaw.
Was a doctor present or a midwife or any help?
I can't answer that, but I'm sure a doctor was.
Okay, fair enough. And did you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I had. Altogether, my family, there was 6 in the family, 3 girls and 3 boys.
Okay.
But my father and 2 of them, they don't all have the same father. My father was John Garvin, and he was killed by lightning in April, and I was born in October. Lightning struck me here on the farm. It's a lot.
And your mother decided to stay?
Yes, she raised us children all by herself, mostly the 4.
So,
my oldest sister and brother was, I guess they were about 8 and 9. One brother I had, he was born in 1915. I was born in 1919. And so she raised those 4. And then she remarried later and had 2 more children.
Okay. Well, then tell us a little bit about how your family came to have this land.
This is an Indian allotment.
Okay.
And then my father, John Garvin, bought the rest of it. It ended up about 350 acres.
Cherokee, I'm assuming?
Bought it from their allotment, most of them.
Okay.
It joined us.
Well, when you were in school age, where did you go?
To a little school about 3/4 of a mile from here.
Close enough to walk, huh?
Yeah, we walked.
What was the name of it?
It was really Sequoyah, but it ended up being called Middle Ridge. The whole community's called Middle Ridge. And then later on, I went to Central High School, on the high school.
Okay. And what year did you graduate?
I was 1937.
1937. Okay. What was your favorite subject?
I guess history.
History, okay. And what were your plans at that point?
I didn't have any plans at that point very much. Just go to college and be a teacher, I suppose.
Okay. Where did you plan to go, or did you go ahead and go?
I went to college at Connors, Agricultural College.
Okay.
At Connors.
And get your teaching certificate?
Oh, from there I got the teacher certificate over at Sequoyah.
Okay.
Northeastern, they call it. At that time, it was Northeastern Teachers College.
That was pretty far. Well, I'm not sure how far that is from here.
It's about 50 miles.
Oh, so not too
far.
Not too much.
Oh, when I went to Connors College, not been very far from home. I thought it was so far away, and I got so homesick. I think it's just about 35 miles from here.
But if you're not used to being away, I can see that.
No,
Would you come home very often?
no, I worked in college.
Okay.
Worked my way. Every 3 weeks I could come home.
So what year did you graduate from there?
I didn't graduate from there. I was a year and a half over there, and I transferred to Northeastern.
Okay. And when did you finish there?
A long time. I got 3 degrees from there after the war,
Okay.
after World War II.
You liked college then, huh?
Well, I just went in between working in college and whatnot.
So you would have been in college during the 40s when World War II was going on?
I would have been, but I went to work at defense plants.
Okay.
One in Boeing aircraft, and then in Shipyards in California.
So you went from here to there, huh?
Yeah. I didn't teach part of a school year at before I would put in the defense plants, because World War II came,
Did you go with someone else or go by yourself?
I went by myself.
You did?
Yes.
That's brave, wasn't it? Adventurous, rather.
I didn't have much choice but to work.
Huh.
And they needed workers. A recruiter came
Okay.
to our school when I went to Boeing.
And then to California.
Boeing in Wichita, and then I went to California later because my brothers was working out there in a defense plant.
Okay. What did you do there? What type of work?
I was, they called it spray painting. I knew how to spray paint. I was an interior decorator. I worked on the Liberty ships, and then I worked on the troop ships where the troops went to war.
And where would a single woman live?
Where to see? Well, when I first went, all the housing was terrible. You couldn't hardly find any housing. I lived on East 14th Street in Oakland for a while. Then I bought a house in a new housing addition off of 98th Street in Oakland, California. I bought a house.
Well, you were doing well. Well, you weren't married at that time, were you?
No, I wasn't married then.
It's kind of unusual to be there by yourself there, and
No, my mother and sisters came out and lived with me.
that helped a little bit then with homesickness.
Yeah, and my brother was out there too.
Okay. And when did you decide to come back to Oklahoma?
After the war.
Okay. Did the whole family come back, or just you?
We all came back.
They all came back to this particular area, to the farm.
Yes, we came back here.
Well, what was going on with it while you were there? What was going on with the farm and the ranch here while you were in California?
It was rented out.
Okay.
We rented it while we was out there.
You knew it would be temporary
Yes.
there. When you came back from California, what did you do?
Well, when I came back from California after the war was over, in the wartime, we all the people did something. And during the war, I said we prayed, we worked, cried, we danced, shared our stories and asked about our loved ones and our friends. All of that, I said, everybody did what they could. Some went to the military. Some worked in defense plants. Some grew victory gardens. We sacrificed. All during the war, we sacrificed and rationed everything. That's when I learned to eat banana and peanut butter sandwich. I said, that never sounded good, but it's pretty good because everything was rationed, the meat was. However, we had most of the meat all we wanted because people back here sent us the food stamps. Their food, we had stamps. To buy everything, you had to have some kind of ration, shoes, gasoline, everything. And when it came back, well, I went to the unemployment office. I was going to sign up. I was unemployed. So they looked at my record and said, well, you can teach school. I said, I can't teach school if there's no vacancies. And then my husband, when he got out of service, he stayed in the service 4.5 years. 18 months of it was spent in Germany. But before he left, when we were about 17, 18-year-olds, we went on one date, kind of a blind date, and we never contacted anybody anymore. He went back to where he was in his civil service at Conservation Corps. He went there when he was 17. And then I went off to school in different places. We never contacted anymore. So a few years after, 10 years later, he came back. He was the first one we dated together. I said, how come we never did contact each other all that time? He said, well, you didn't sound very interested. And I said, well, you didn't either. You didn't pursue me. So we stayed married 63 years.
That's a long time.
He died in...
Well, then, when did you get married? What year was
1947.
it? 1947. Oh, after the war.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was after the war. When he came back from the war. But it was 10 years later.
He looked you up then?
Hmm?
He looked you up then? Or, I mean,
Yeah.
how did you reconnect at that point?
Well, I think my sister and I was in a cafe, and he and his friend came in, and my sister married his friend, and I was introduced again to him, and that's how we met again.
Was meant to be.
Yeah, I said, I believe that God sent us together. I always believe that.
Well, where did you get married?
That's a funny thing, too. Back in Oklahoma, you had to take a blood test. You remember that law?
Mm-hmm.
You waited 3 days where they broke one of our vials of blood. I don't recall whether it was his or mine. So we used to have to wait 3 more days, and during the time, all our Middle Ridge family and kinfolks, we're all kinfolks to each other. at that time. Always camped out over at Bradley Ford. That's the creek over there. They were over there, but I didn't go. He came back. He had a business in town called Clyde Snooker Parlor. So he was working on the 3rd of July, but I didn't go there. I went up to see him. So I was going to have to wait again 3 more days for Oklahoma law. So he just locked up his business and said, let's go get married. We went to Fort Smith and got married by a judge or who it was. That's where we got married.
Waited long enough, huh?
Yeah. So we moved here for a while. This house was here.
Okay.
And then for 9 years we lived in Sallisaw. Then we came back here.
And they've been here ever since?
Yes,
pretty
ever
much.
Since.
Well, during those 10 years when you hadn't interacted with him, some of those years you were back here already. A couple of those years you were back in Oklahoma from California.
No, it was mostly in the defense plants.
Okay. I was just trying to. When did you start acquiring more land?
I already had land, and then
You already had.
I bought more land.
Okay.
He and I bought more land.
Had you bought some when it was just you? Before you were married?
I inherited it.
Inherited it. Okay.
I inherited it. And my brothers and sisters. It was called a Homestead Act. You can have so much homestead and not have to pay such high taxes here. And my brothers was divided between the brothers and sisters. And I bought some of that back too, also.
Okay.
And my husband and I bought some land.
So he went from owning a business in town to doing ranch-related work?
Yeah. Well, yes, before he put in his business, he worked on a highway department roads. Because while he was in a civil corps and called it CC camps, that's what he did. He worked on the government land, building ponds and working heavy equipment. So when he got back here, he went to work for the road construction till he put in his business.
He got some good training that he put to use.
Yeah. Yeah, he could do it all. Then he worked on the ranch. We had a farm and ranch, I guess you'd call it, cow. We raised horses and cows and bred and raced horses and cows. Quarter horses.
That was the primary product of the ranch.
Yes.
Horses.
We raised hay and horses and cattle. And we raced them and bred them to horses.
Did you have a winner?
Oh, yeah, we had lots of winners. We took one to the Rio Downs in New Mexico.
What was its name? Do you remember?
His name was Go Snow Smith.
Go. Can you say it again?
Go Snow Smith.
Go Snow Smith.
Yeah. His name. First horse we bought was named Rider Bar. Son of a Rider Bar. And so that's what we did. Most of our married life was racehorses and cattle and breeding racehorses.
So during that time, did anyone have to work off of the farm in order to keep the farm going? Supplemental income?
Well, I taught school.
Okay, that counts.
Yeah, I taught school for 41 years.
Okay.
I have taught all grades from, we called it back then a primer, through the 12th grade.
And different subjects or primarily one?
No, I've taught all grades, but in high school I taught the history and biological science.
Okay. And then your husband ran the operations on the ranch.
And then later, he got a job back with the highway on the tourism. He would open our tourist center out here on I-40. He worked for tourism. When we retired, he worked for tourism, and I was teaching. We retired in '83. And we had our ranch all during that time. So we was pretty busy.
I'd say. We should probably back up and say, what was the ranch called?
TRJ.
TRJ?
TRJ Ranch. When Papa owned it, I don't know where it was called a ranch or not, but he had cattle, and Papa and Mama, it's an open range. You just had cattle from here to the Arkansas line, back. It's open range, you'd run out.
And my question would be, how did they know they were his cows? Did they have a brand?
Yes, our brand. Papa's brand was 4, a big 4 on the right hip.
Okay.
And our brand, Jimmy's and mine, is TRJ brand on the side.
And that stands for the Ryder Ranch? TR?
Tom Ryder Jr.
Okay. Tom Ryder Jr.
Yeah.
Okay. And today, is it still called that?
You just call it TRJ Ranch.
Okay.
During that time, we first got married, we lived out here. Well, there's dirt roads and just old ruts and everything. So that's the reason we lived out here all year. When we first got married, we moved to town 9 years because of the roads. Couldn't get in, out. So he started working to get better out here, and he and Jason and commissioners and Cherokee Nation had this Ryder Road here.
And
it's named Ryder Road.
Okay. It was most of the property belonged to the Ryders on this stretch?
All kinfolks, yeah.
All kinfolks, okay.
There's a few, we call them foreigners if they don't live here, but they intermarried to the middle race, so they're part of us now.
Well, where had your mother and your father moved from before they came to Oklahoma? Or were they born here?
Mama was born at Mount Ida. And Papa was born in the little town of Hanson. It's where Central County, where Central High School is now, in that community.
So both in Oklahoma or in the general vicinity here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes, they're right here. Not very far apart.
And the house that you grew up in, can you describe it to us?
Well, I said it burned down when I was 6 years old. Well, it had a living room, then they had what they call a parlor, and a big, long hall, back porch, and a wraparound front porch. And there was 3 bedrooms. But this big hall was all the way down these others on each side.
And how was it heated?
Oh, that's how come it burned down.
Mm.
They had the fireplace, but they had fireplace on one side, and it opened on both sides into 2-room. Well, it never did do so well, so put a stove in there. And the heat was a stove. And the pipes, as far as I know, can remember, the blaze started in the attic. Mm. And it burned, and Papa and his cattle raising had taken cattle to Kansas City at some time or other, and he'd bought us a piano, part. And what I remember, the neighbors came in when they heard the fire was going in our house. What I remember, one of them said, "Take this pillow and take your little brother up there." That's about along in here somewhere. Take your little brother up there. And I remember seeing that piano burn and those beautiful blazes going out. That's what I remember about that house. The neighbors all came in and threw out what furniture they could, save some of the furniture. And when the lightning struck my papa, killed him, it melted the change in his pocket.
It was really hot. Mm.
They just killed him instantly.
Mm.
Quick, sorry.
That's okay. And about how old were you? About how old were you at that point?
I was 6 years old.
When your father passed away.
I wasn't born.
Oh, you were. That's right.
I wasn't born.
He passed away in April, and you were born in October.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
He was killed in April. Mama said it wasn't any cloud, a storm. It's just a few thunderheads.
Mm. One of those freak accidents that couldn't be helped.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, did you get another piano?
I wondered when I was married for several years, but I never could get my hands to work together. I took a few lessons. I said, I can't wait to sing. Sold it.
Well, when that house burned to the ground, did your mother rebuild?
No. Papa had a lot of sharecroppers. We had empty houses. That's where we moved over there.
Okay.
Where the schoolhouse used to be, over at Middle Ridge. That's where my sister Jean was born, from a different husband.
Well, you mentioned sharecroppers. Do you remember any of them?
Oh, yes, I remember them.
Do you?
We had 3 houses here. Altogether, I think there was 8 different sharecroppers. And back then, they had to furnish them houses to live in. And they could only farm about 40 acres because they used teams and mules and they couldn't farm much. And they cleared and farmed land and for all of it. I remember one place my father bought a car from his good friend, and the woman next had an allotment, 40 acres next to ours. We still own it in the family. And he said she wanted the car. He said, whopped her that car for that 40 acres of land.
He got the better end of that deal, didn't he?
Yeah. I've had a long, interesting and wonderful life.
Mm-hmm. Well, were the sharecroppers African American or?
Oh, no. They were just like we are. They all mixed up, but they mostly just white and Indian, part Indians and part mixtures.
Well, what was that house then? Was it like a 1-room, 2-room, the Sharecropper house that you moved into?
The sharecroppers shared.
Mm-hmm. When your house burned and you moved into a Sharecropper house, what was it like?
It was a pretty good house. It was about 3 rooms, and a porch and front porch. And one house we had, it was a house, and the kitchen was built outside in a log house. And it was right here. But we had a house also right up there. They were about 3 and 4 rooms. It was sometimes they had porches on the back and front. Just built different ways.
And I'm assuming there was no indoor toilet.
No, you're assuming right. We didn't we didn't get that for a while.
Yeah. But
my grandpa Garvin, where he lived, had one. They had a bathroom. They had a cistern. You know what a cistern is. It had that.
Had modern conveniences.
Yeah.
Well, when your mother would go to the store, what would be the closest town? Sallisaw?
No, we had a little town. At that time, it's called Sweet Town. It's Aikens over here. From here, it'd be about 2 miles down this road and then back that way.
She could go there to get things like flour and sugar.
Yeah, they had a grist mill over there. They ground corn for the meal or flour and sugar. I don't remember. We usually went to Sallisaw for bigger supplies. When I was a girl, sometimes you'd go over there to Aikens.
And how would you get there?
We'd go in, at that time, we went in a wagon.
Wagon. Okay.
Through the fields.
And you mentioned Aikens, and we were speaking earlier about...
Well, it was called Sweet Town in my mother's and father's day, but then I don't know when it was changed to Aikens.
And that's famous now because it's where Pretty Boy Floyd is buried.
Yes, I guess so. Pretty Boy Floyd's brother was sheriff for a long time here, back through the years.
Have any interactions with them?
With the Floyds?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. All of them.
Okay.
But not Pretty Boy. I went to his funeral. I was 34. I was about 14 years old.
You remember a little bit then? Yeah.
Oh, there was cars everywhere. They bought out all the groceries and stuff in Sallisaw, all around. Hundreds and hundreds of people parked. And all their family were good people. So I've seen a lot of changes.
I'd say you've seen a lot, yes.
Yeah.
Well, on the farm, what kind of changes have you seen?
Well, we all have tractors now. Back then, we had mules and horses. And they grow different crops. They used to grow, this part of the country used to grow corn and cotton, oats and things like that. Most of it they just run a few cattle and livestock now. Most of the cattle. Hay.
So tractors, would your father, no, your father probably wouldn't have had a tractor.
No, they didn't have a tractor. They had mules and horses.
Well, when they started using tractors on the farm, did you learn to drive one?
No. That's one thing I told my husband. I said, I don't cut sprouts and I don't drive tractors. I rode a lot with him feeding in a tractor when he went to feed the cattle, because I put out those big round bales. When he put out a bale, then you have to cut the strings off. I helped him cut the strings off a lot, but I didn't drive a tractor.
And you didn't cook sprouts?
No. You know what? Used to, when they farmed, little persimmon sprouts would come up. You'd have to go down and cut them with a chopping axe and whatnot. I said, I'm not cutting sprouts and not driving no tractor.
Cutting sprouts. I was thinking you said cooking sprouts, and I'm thinking Brussels sprouts. And that's not, you said cutting sprouts. Okay.
Oh, the little persimmon trees that grow up every year. Main reason I can't hit where I look.
And your husband's name was John?
No, his name was Tom Felix Ryder, but he went by the name of Jimmy. I called him Jimmy.
Okay, Jimmy.
Yeah, that's the nickname he had. Some of his friends called him by his pool hall, Snooker Hall named Spide, but I've always called him Jimmy.
A Snooker Hall?
Yeah.
What's a snooker? I'm not sure what that is.
That's where they play. What do they play? What do you call it besides snooker, Jason?
Pool.
Pool.
Oh, no, pool hall. Okay.
Pool, but the
So it was a snooker parlor.
snooker parlor.
They learned something.
It's just a different size of table and different size of balls. A little bit different game, but
A
very
little
similar.
bit different. It had a jukebox and all that stuff in there. Sold beer.
Primarily men would go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, women
Just-
not so much.
Women didn't go to bars then. No. Back then, he didn't go to bars.
Well, was church an important part of life on the ranch? Church?
Oh, yeah, we went to the Aikens Baptist Church. We both got baptized at Aikens Baptist Church. Most all the time.
Okay. Well, when you were younger, like when your mom and dad were around, did you do the same?
Well, back then, we had, in the summertime, we had what we call brush arbors. You know what a brush arbor church is?
No, I don't.
A brush arbor church is, in the summertime, the people in the community, we had a brush arbor church right up here. They would build the seats, and then on the post top, put brush on the top of them, and we mostly went in the summertime, and they have traveling preachers, ministers, and most of the time it was women that preached in these brush arbors, and they'd make seats out of logs, or if anybody had board benches, you know, but they left them there all the time. And they preached, and sometimes they called it getting the Holy Ghost, and shouting and all that stuff. And one time, one woman and they'd stay with somebody in the community, you know. So one time there was one lady up there shouting and doing all that stuff, and they really get on the power now. They do something, and they don't put on. And she was all floundering around on the ground, and I thought to myself, oh, I hope Mama don't ever do that. Kind of scared me. Of course, I wasn't very old at that time, about 12, 14, yeah. And the lady preacher stayed with us while she was here. And they had another one down in the other. Each little community would have their brush arbor churches because most people walked. And they'd get together and go. We also had a lot of country dances, too.
And where would they be?
At people's houses. Of course, it'd be in mostly according to the weather, how we got there and whatnot. And one time and a lot of people in the community play music, guitars, banjos, and whatnot. The spoons, rattle the spoons, and sometimes they'd have a saw, sometimes a rub board, whatever it was that they had, you know, to play. So one night, one Saturday night, I suppose it's Saturday night, might have been any night, I don't know, but any one time we was going to a neighbor's house for their dance, and my brother was riding a horse, and back then we had milk cows, not many, just and people sold cream and stuff like that. They had separators. Well, one of the men that had some cows, he was going to go out and find the cows and bring them in and put the calves up and go get the cows. So he had been to town, and he had him a beer or two. He kind of tipsy. So he was going to go get the cows, and he was riding his horse, and he had a spotted horse. So my brother and several of us were walking. He was riding a horse, and we all met up. He was looking for his cows, and we was going to this people's house and met at a corner. And we visited with him. Well, his Uncle Jess was on his horse, and he'd put on his wife's split bonnet with little strings hanging down. It was still sun up, kind of. And he said, I told my brother he wanted to walk with his girlfriend or somebody, and I was riding his horse. So he said, let's race. So where we was going to dance, I said, okay. Well, we started about a mile of racing. And at first his horse was just out running, but boy, those old ribbons on his bonnet was just a floppy, you know. But on down closer to the end, my horse outrun him because it was for longer speed than his horse. So then we had our dance. Everybody danced. Square dances, jig dances. It kind of wanted to dance.
A jig dance. I know what a square dance is. What about a jig dance? Just whatever move you can make, huh?
Yeah, it just well, there's a step that you jigs. That's kind of Irish step.
Okay.
Jig dancing, square dancing, round dance too. Anything.
Well, did you learn how to play any of those instruments?
Oh, that's what I say. I couldn't get my head to work together.
Well, I know for the piano, but did you learn any of the others?
No, I tried on guitar, but I get this thing work.
So you just
I wasn't
danced.
coordinated.
So you just danced.
Oh, I just danced. I love to dance.
What was the name of your horse that outbeat him?
Oh, his name was Trigger, I think.
Tigger?
Trigger.
Trigger. What color was he?
He was a kind of a brown with a lighter color mane. Kind of what you call a sorrel.
Well, would you ever ride them to school?
Oh, yes. I did when I was in Sallisaw. When Mama moved to Sallisaw, where the horse was at school. About a while, but not often.
Okay. Well, did your mother make your clothes?
Oh, yeah, Mama was an excellent seamstress. We always had good food, plenty of clothes, and good shelter. Talk about riding horses. I rode a horse to teach school over at one school a time or two, because there was a creek between me and the school, and sometimes the creek would be up, and the swinging bridge that they had to cross the creek would be out. So I rode a horse a time or two to school. I like to ride horses.
When was the last time you were on one?
When I was about 37 or 40 years old.
Okay. Been a little while.
Yeah.
Well, in later years, how would you check the fences around the ranch?
Well, we check them in the truck, mostly, in the tractor.
Didn't keep a horse for that?
No. Well, my husband might have when he was riding horses and whatnot. But we had an old truck and kept our fencing material in. We just used it for fencing.
The work truck, huh?
Yeah, just an old work truck.
Well, how many ponds are there on your place? Do you know?
How many ponds we have? 6.
6?
Yeah. And back when the first years ago in Papa's lifetime, when they was built ponds, they had a big, I don't know what you call it. Pulled it anyway, a slip. What's that called, Jason?
Slip and a mule.
A slip and a slip?
You know what the years ago that you dug dirt with.
You always called it a slip.
Yeah, slip. And you hold them, mules pull them, and they slip all that dirt and dump it out. Kind of similar to a wheelbarrow on it would dig the dirt up. That's where you built all of the ponds.
Or any of them natural ones? Natural ponds? That you didn't have to make?
Well, they'd be kind of low places, some of them.
Okay.
And it's what you can see 2 of them. One's right down there and one's right up here on the Auckland Road.
Okay.
You see 3 of them, I guess.
Well, how about buildings like barns and that sort of thing? How many outbuildings?
We have 3.
3.
But back then they had, they didn't have lots of barns then. But we had 2, 3 here. But usually the sharecroppers didn't have barns.
Well, if the cattle roamed free, you didn't really need one, I guess, for cattle. Open range.
Oh, yeah.
They wouldn't have. Well, what was the favorite meal that your mother would cook for you? What did you like best?
What I like best?
That your mother fixed.
She was a good cook, so I guess I'd like the chicken and dressing.
Did you raise your own chickens?
Oh, yeah, I've had chickens everywhere we went. Not in town, when Mama was alive. We don't have any chickens here much because of the coyotes. Too many coyotes now.
Well, when she did have them, whose job was it to kill them? Did she do it, or did your older brother, or
Mama mostly did.
mother?
My brother and I was going to kill one time, and there's an arc to that ring in her neck. So he wrung the chicken's neck, threw it down, and let it finish dying. He won't put off. Just kill it.
Not as easy as it looks, is it?
No.
And did you learn how to milk a cow?
Oh, yeah, I learned how to milk. I learned how to milk real young, about 7 years old. We had to do a lot of cheering before we went to school and after school. Yeah, we learned to milk and turn a separator. Cream separator. You know what that is?
I've seen pictures of them.
Yeah. My older brother and I'd have to do that. We'd fuss whose turn is it to turn it, you know.
And how would you do laundry back in the day?
A big wash pot and poured full of water. started boiling it. And then we had a rub board and a wash tub and scrubbed them. Put them in boiling water and took them out and rinsed them in some more water. Hung them on a clothesline, had the line stretched up.
People don't do that anymore, do they?
No.
Was the pot outside?
Oh, yeah.
Was
This is everything outside. Not inside.
Well, what about bath time then?
Well, at bath time, you had usually what we had was a big old comfort stove, crosswise on the corner of the kitchen. And it had a reservoir on it. You kept that reservoir full of water. And when you took a bath, you put a bathtub behind the stove in that corner. That's what you took a bath in.
Did you change water in between kids?
Oh, yeah.
Did you? Some haven't. I'm just curious.
Well, yeah. You should draw water out of the well. But when it was the reservoir kept some water warm, some of it.
So would your mother quilt? Did your mother quilt?
Beautifully. She pieced quilts. That's what was her hobby, and we always had lots of feather beds, pick geese and make feather beds. We slept warm. She made beautiful quilts.
So in the wintertime, you'd have the oil heat plus quilts to keep warm.
And
How would you stay cool in the summer?
we didn't stay very cool in the summer. Sometimes we'd have a bed out on the porch, sleep out on the porch with a bed. But it wasn't too cool out there either.
Well, you have a lot of trees here. Were there as many trees when you were younger?
Lots more than this right here. Lots of them died.
Do you know why your family picked this particular piece of allotment to get, or did they have a choice on what piece they got?
As far as I know, they don't have any choice.
Didn't have a choice.
I should know it, but I don't.
Well, you may not have. It may have just been assigned. So.
Because I know some of it wasn't always together. Sometimes it'd give you allotment and then have 10 acres somewhere else. Allotment. Why, I don't know.
Well, which side of the family was Cherokee?
My father.
Your father's side. Okay. Did he practice any of the Cherokee culture? I mean, powwows, that sort of thing?
No. Not that I know of. We have a powwow. Redbird Smith powwow out toward Gore, but no, we didn't practice it.
Okay. So on his side, was he full, half, quarter, do you know?
He was almost a half.
Okay. Well, on the form that you filled out for the Centennial Farm packet,
Yeah.
they mentioned a pumpkin boy. Someone's name was Pumpkin Boy. The original person for the land. Doesn't ring any bells, huh?
No.
It's written down.
It's a long time ago,
Yeah.
so a long time ago.
Oh, I don't remember.
No, that's fine. I didn't know. I was just going to ask if you'd had heard stories about him, so we'll
Yeah.
move on. That's one of those, if you don't know, we'll skip it and go on.
While he's adjusting there for a second, that part of the history is written down and documented, and she can probably tell you more about OOHRP Binge, which was her grandfather, and that was in the same area. Pumpkin Boy was one of the first ones that showed up in 1817.
Okay.
And then descended on down with the Binge family that comes in. She can tell you about the rocks on the backside of this fireplace coming out of his house. And that goes back 150, 60 years. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to switch gears and talk about your grandfather, Binge.
OOHRP Binge.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
I never know him much.
Well, he mentioned the fireplace.
Well, you know stories that you can tell.
Just one or two.
Rocks in this fireplace back in here was moved from a house place, another house place. This building, and they're all cut rock. Look like quarried. And they had a log cabin up here, and they quarried the rocks close by, and he cut those cut rock. In fact, there's one of them out there on the step, the first step over the porch, one of those rocks. Jimmy drug them in here with a tractor from the different places.
That's when you think if rocks could talk, they could tell us a long story.
Yes.
So, of all of your siblings, do any of them live nearby?
Siblings.
Brothers and sisters?
Well, I have only one sister living. That's Jean. She lives in Sallisaw.
They stayed in the area?
She lives in Sallisaw.
So they stayed in the area, some of them?
All of them.
All of them, okay.
Yep, they all settled here. Most of their children did too. So we can have a party anytime. Just call up Kid Folks.
Well, what is it about the area that keeps you grounded here? I mean, you could have gone back to California, I guess.
Well,
Why stay?
some did, some have come, but just like to hear. My husband says we live in a garden spot of the world. Nobody works and nobody starves. Pretty good said.
Well, with I-40 so close, you can get anywhere you want to go just about.
Yes, we can. We have all crossroads, railroads, and highways. Have a small airport.
Well, you were probably around when I-40 was being built.
I know it wasn't part of 64 highway because my husband worked on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That changed access. more people could come in then.
Yeah.
So tell us about where this house here, when did you build it?
And most of it was after the war.
After the war.
Yeah.
So you've been here a while in this particular spot.
Yeah. And we've added on a room at a time and a porch at a time and a garage at a time. So it got to be a pretty good size house.
For 100 years. What do you see for the next 100 years going forward for the property and the farm and the ranch?
What are they? I don't know. I said, things are so mind-boggling now, this high technology and everything. I just don't know what would happen.
Stay in the family, though?
I hope so. I'm hoping it will. Yeah. I said, after our generation called the Great Generation, and then we had what all we did. I said, wasn't it war, raised the flags on Iwo Jima, put a man on the moon. And I said, now the next generation was the baby boomers. What all they've done, they've contributed lots and lots of things. And then we had another one, the hippies, and they added their generation, our things. And then the hell no, we won't go generation. They can produce presidents and everything. So America's great's what I say. Always had been. Yeah. I've been intending for look up what the word America really means. Do you know? I don't either, but we'll have to Google it.
We'll have to Google it. I know 50 years was stepping on the moon was just recently, this past weekend.
Yeah, I saw that, the Challenger. Mm-hmm. I know when that happened, I was at Teleco getting my reading certificate. Went back to school at Teleco University. Well, they was going to have this moon landing. Some of us, we wanted to see it in the school. Well, there's 2 or 3 of the women, and the professor really kind of wanted to see it. But, oh, no, they had to have that special reading, you know. And I said, I got to see it later, but I said, that reading certificate could have lasted me there forever. It was just a one-time deal. But didn't get to see it, but you saw it, you know, lots of times later on the television. Mm-hmm. But at the time, and during school and going to school, I've been in school a lot. I ought to be educated after a while.
Maybe. Got a few more years to learn a few things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they can just set your groceries right out there now.
Yeah, pick it up at Walmart, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how do you plan to spend your 100th birthday?
No telling.
No telling?
Whatever Jason tells me to do. Well, we had a big blowout for her 99th birthday. It's all a surprise.
Got a year early, huh?
Yeah.
What do you think's your secret to living so long?
Grace of God. And I helped along. I helped in just all I can say. Good people taking care of me. Mm-hmm. Wonderful, wonderful people, wonderful husband. They're all good, better, and best.
Well, do you do things like exercise? And I mean, how do you keep fit today?
How do I?
Yeah,
I take exercises.
do you?
I have right now. I have 2 aides that comes and a nurse a week, and sometimes I get physical therapy. That's really good, but I got kind of well a little bit and they stopped that. I really enjoyed it. It's been good.
Feels good, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you eat anything in particular, like more vegetables than meat, or not?
I try to eat some kind of meat every day, and then I drink Boost and V8 juice and all that kind of stuff.
So you are helping it along.
Yeah. I try to eat a balanced meal.
So currently, roughly how many acres do you have? Just a rough idea.
How many?
520 owned and leased.
We have some leased. 500.
520.
520.
Yeah.
At some point, do you think you've been on every part of it? Walked every fence, or seen
yeah.
every acre?
Oh, yeah. Ride it, been on it, put horseback tractors, trucks.
Do you have a favorite spot?
Well, a long time ago, they drilled an oil well, and they built us to haul in the dirt to dig the oil well. They built a pond way over there in the farthest part of our property. So my husband and I, we thought that kind of secluded to get away from everything. So we went and bought us some fish and put in the pond. And so we had us a spot over there just to go and look around and wander around and whatnot. And wasn't long, somebody from the other side of the section built a house down that road. Ruined our seclusion, so yeah, we grew the fish and fed them, and then we enjoyed going over there and feeding the fish, you know. So ruined our seclusion. But last 2 or 3 weeks, Jason and Michael and they fixed us a barbecue, bought it rather. We went up there at the end of one of our roads, and we had a tailgate party, just the 3 of us. Oh, these all pretty trees and wildflowers, primroses, and other kind of flowers up there. What was that? What date was that?
When was it?
Yeah, about 3rd of July or 4th.
About a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago.
It was what?
Week and a half, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Sometime since
Recently, yes.
Yeah, recently. Since it's been this, we've had such a wonderful year, except some places flooding.
Yeah, had a lot of rain. What's your favorite time on the farm? Season?
Oh, springtime.
Springtime.
Everything's growing.
Well, do you have a garden, or have you had a garden?
Yes, well, we've always, but when I was able, my husband, we had just a little garden, for us. We grow beans and potatoes and radishes and lettuces, things and greens and stuff like that.
Have to have a tomato plant in there.
Oh yeah, tomatoes and cucumbers. I tried to squash, but I never could do no good much with squash. Easy to grow, but I don't know. They get on a little bitty one and swivel up and never mature. I don't know what happened.
Well, growing up, what would you do for fun? Like on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, what would you do for fun?
What time of my life?
When you were younger, in school, like elementary school.
Well, as I said, we was to community parties and whatnot.
Yeah, I was just thinking you might have played games like with your...
we play baseball and softball. We played softball, hopscotch, and things like that. Basketball.
Tell about you and Emmett making the car.
Oh, go-karts. Yeah, my brother and I, we got cultivator wheels and pour and make a go-kart. We went down this north of here, these dirt roads, and it was a steep old hill. Oh, we pushed that thing up there, and it guided. Dad wondered we hadn't killed ourselves. We'd just run down that hill far as it goes. Have to put it back up. But we really rode high for a while.
And you made it yourselves?
Oh, yeah.
Did your mother know you were doing that on the hill?
She probably didn't. Hey,
No crashes.
so far we didn't.
We didn't. Well, how would you do holidays like Christmas and Thanksgiving? When you were younger?
When I was real young, we just had our holidays at our home. Later on, we would go to all the families get together and go to somebody's house most of the time. But we usually ate Christmas here.
Go out and chop your own tree?
Yes. Usually a cedar tree. There were lots of cedars way back when I was young. Yeah.
Yeah, now we got too many, don't we?
Yeah. And we always had a black-eyed New Year's, had black-eyed peas for New Year's, somebody's house, and celebrate the New Year's.
Well, was July 4th a big holiday too?
Yes.
More so than now?
Well, back then, we usually celebrated. But when I was young, I don't remember, real young, I don't remember celebrating the 4th of July much.
Okay.
A few firecrackers.
We've covered a lot. Is there anything you want to tell us that we haven't thought to ask?
I can think of
Any
anything.
changes or something you want to know we haven't covered? I don't think so.
Tell everyone where you taught school. Started out at Seven Oaks riding a horse. Had to have a car with high wheels.
Yeah.
Tell them about teaching, where you taught. Because you started teaching and then you were recruited to go to California and then you come back and taught.
Yeah.
You tell the story.
Over at Seven Oaks.
Start out.
Yeah,
when I started teaching, I first taught at...
Take us through your teaching career.
Come on, show us you have a master's degree. Did you get that smile?
When I started teaching, was at Brushy School. Before the war. That's where I left that school and went to war.
Went to Wichita.
Yes.
And then when you came back from California, where did you teach?
When I came back from California, I taught school over at Seven Oaks. I was a principal there, and I was a principal at Brushy School for about 9 or 10 years, and I was principal over at Seven Oaks. And from Seven Oaks, that's when I rode a horse over there, too. And the A model car, sometimes because you couldn't get through the ruts and whatnot for getting stuck. And then Seven Oaks School, sometimes I rode a horse Seven Oaks School because the creek would be up, the roads would be worse. And then I went into, that's where I had the A model car and wore my fur coat sometimes that I bought in California. Had a fox fur coat, an A model. Well, one of my friends saw me driving in town one time. He said, "Look, driving a fox fur coat and driving an A model car." I bought that A model for $75. Good one. Had a rumble seat. Anyway, then I went to Central High School, and that's where I taught 11th and 12th history and principles, democracy. From Central, I went to, I went from there to Roland. I taught 1 year in Roland School. And I went back to Sallisaw for the rest of my teaching career.
And you got a master's degree along the way?
I have a bachelor's and a master's in reading certificates. Also,
So you got to go for a PhD next. EDD.
I guess you could.
Being a principal is a pretty tough job, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Well, being a female too, when you bought your car, did someone have to sign? Well, no, if you paid $75. I'm just thinking, being a female doing all of this without a spouse, you were a pretty strong woman.
Well, being the principal was too, because they didn't think anybody was supposed to be principal if you was a woman, back then. Oh, no. You couldn't be. The women was really discriminated against.
Well, then how did it work out that you got to be principal?
Well, at Brushy, when I went there, they had 2 teachers, but we had quite a few children didn't go to school very well, so I encouraged him to send him to school. And they had a lot of the people that went to California and didn't come, their family didn't come back, all of them. See, about 2 or 3 families. Well, they had an earthquake in Tehachapi, California. And those people came back and always had 3 or 4 children each one. So we had enough students to qualify for another teacher. So we got 3 teachers up there while I was teaching there. And I taught there for, I believe, 9 years at that time. And we just had more students because they was transferring to Sallisaw because a bus would come by their door. And you couldn't blame them hardly for going. So my husband and I were friends with Sallisaw School Board. So we asked them to, Bibb School had already gone out, lost all their students, and another Rocky Point had gone out. So we asked them to let us annex a big school district from their district to give us 25 square miles so we could have a bus. So we got a bus and got more students until somebody got qualified to drive that bus. My husband knew it a few times. So that's how we got that up in this big school now. Big school.
Well, you've had a good career, haven't you?
Yes.
Good.
A lot of work.
A lot of work.
I never have got bored.
What do you do these days for fun?
Whatever they tell me I can do.
Yeah, I hear you go on long hikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I walk around a little bit with I call it my stick. It's a staff. I don't use a walking stick. I keep my balance okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you've also traveled quite a bit here in the last several years, too. Can you tell
Oh,
about
we
all the
went
travels?
just this past year. We went to Denver, Colorado, also in between. Jason took his travel trailer, went to Denver. You've been to Denver Rockies.
Mm-hmm.
Up one hill, down the curve, down. Oh, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And the wonders, all that wonder up above the clouds. We got up a lookout mountain up above the clouds, up above the mountains. It was a wonderful trip. So it was a wondrous trip and saw many different things. Lots of snow.
Just about any time of year, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, since you raced horses, did you make it to the Kentucky Derby?
That's when we went to Kentucky Derby. No, I've never been to the race, but saw it, didn't we, Jason? Didn't we finally get there?
I think you're talking about the All-American in Ruidoso.
Yeah, we went to that. And, but when we was in Tennessee, Nashville, where you just go around and around, and then you went to see Grandpa.
We didn't go to Kentucky Derby.
No, we didn't go to the Derby. But Lexington,
Yeah.
Kentucky. But anyway, up above the clouds and up on Lookout Mountain in Colorado. They got out, so looking around, I stayed in the travel trailer. And I see that peak over there would be snowing. Over here would be something else. And I looked out one time. I couldn't see anything. It was a cloud. I was up above the clouds. And while we saw that trip, we saw the Denver Broncos Stadium. And we saw lots of stuff.
It's a pretty state.
Yeah.
Tell about going across the Gulf of Mexico on a ferry.
Gulf of Mexico. We've traveled on the Gulf of Mexico. We traveled all those coasts. And anyway, we was going down to there. The whole thing went up, the whole highway went up on this bridge, to I guess a barge or whatever it was called. I don't know what it was. But the whole highway was over it. And I got to sit there waiting, because I saw a flag sticking up. And I said, well, when are we ever going to get off of this thing? And that flag was on the barge. We was already across where we was going over to the next island. I said, oh, Lord. And we'll get across another one. And had to wait in line to go across another little island over down there. I thought, well, this thing is getting pretty rough. I was getting kind of scared myself. But anyway, we went off and over that and went to a little village like. And I said to myself, well, we're parking in a expensive place here. There was a little library. I could hear the chickens crowing and whatnot. I said, I'd like to stay there a while and looked around, but anyway, time marches on, so we had to go another which way. So we traveled all the Gulf of Mexico. Came back down to Houston, up that way, back home.
Always glad to get back home.
Yeah.
No place like it.
Oh. So I've traveled a lot. I've never traveled in the Northeast, but that's the only place I haven't.
Been to New York City?
No.
No.
Tell about the first time you went to California. When you were about 6. Mama bought a new truck.
Oh.
She didn't drive.
When I went to New Mexico.
New Mexico?
Yeah.
But well in California, wasn't it? Or was it just New Mexico?
It was New Mexico.
Okay.
Las Cruces. Yeah. That's a long time ago. First time I went, I was about 6 years old. And we went out to New Mexico. And we started out with the people they was going wrong. Well, they had so many flats on the tires and whatnot. They quit us at Warner, Oklahoma. But we went on. My brother was driving a pickup truck, and those pickup trucks then were small. And he was driving. He was 16, And my mother was a piece. Her grandmother and grandfather moved to Mexico, New Mexico, for a while. Anyway, we was going out there, and then instead of like campgrounds and whatnot, they had what they call wagon yards where you park your vehicle and spend the night. Well, while we were there, my brother got the mumps, and he got sick and stayed there. And but on the way, we had this truck, and I had two brothers there, and my brother and I would buy this. We rode in the back on mattress, back and mattress. If there's any rocks around, and when we stopped anywhere, we got off and throw them at the rabbits. There was so many rabbits out through that way. But anyway, we camped in this yard, and he got the mumps, and something else had happened. So then my mother, this was her second husband. I suppose I don't know where they had a quarrel or fight or something, but she was going out there, and they was sending word back here and hollering trains and everything where we got lost. They didn't know what happened to us for 6 weeks. So they came and happened. I can remember Grandma running down when we finally got, said, "Oh, they're here, they're here." So that's one episode. And we lived out there. Oh, they didn't stay very long. They got back together. And behind our house where we lived in New Mexico, there was an irrigating channel. Back then, the irrigation, the land had to be level, when they irrigated, more or less. Well, there was a gate opened. The water would come up all the way around our house if they opened it and irrigated stuff. And so my brother and I, while we were there, we went out and opened the channel gate. So Mama got up in the night and she said, she's telling me this, everything was flooded all around, flooded. And we'd opened up those gates and let the water in. So I don't know what happened to us, whether we got punished or not. We didn't. She punished us a long time ago when we was kids at home. You go get you a switch. We'd hook a long time for that switch. By the time she'd forget all about it. She's going to switch us. We didn't get very many switches.
That would have been in the 1920s, right during close to the Depression time.
Yeah.
When you were doing that.
We were very old, didn't we?
When you went to work in the shipyard, how did you get there? Did you fly or take a bus or train? Or drive, I guess.
When
you went to work at the shipyards during World War II?
We took a train. And during the war, sometime, they had one of the trains we rode. They had German prisoners. They were kept at Camp Garver. They had all the prisoners. Well, we'd get off, but they fed those prisoners before they fed us. We hardly got anything to eat by the time we got to California. That was on a trip from Wichita to there. And I rode an airplane from Wichita to Tulsa while I was working up there. Small plane.
Well, they've changed a lot too, haven't they?
I'll say they have.
They have.
I worked on I painted the stars, put stars on the wings at Wichita. And also worked on gliders. And in the shipyards, I worked what they call them U-boats that landed, landed on D-Day. All the big ships, they call them U-boats. And the troop ships and whatnot.
So you did your part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then some.
Yeah.
But always glad to get back here.
Always glad to come home.
Always good home. Well, if there's not anything else, we can close out. Anything else? You guys want anything else? Okay. Well, thank you for talking with us today. We're finished unless you want to add anything.
Well, I can't add anything. Can you think of anything?
Well, one thing. Where did Echo come from for your name? Do you know? We need to ask that.
Yeah. Well, as I said, my father and mother went to the movies. And they had a series in the movies of this little Indian maiden, and her name was Echo. And what was her hands high? What's the head?
Hands up.
Hands up. And I was in that movie, so they said if I was a girl, they was going to name me Echo. And Ruth Rowland is one that was a series. She was a what you had that film, Jason.
She was the actress.
Mm-hmm. You got it right.
Ruth Rowland.
Ruth Rowland.
Ruth Rowland was the actress.
And she played a lady on this TV show that was Echo Delaney.
Yeah.
It's from about 1918 was a series.
It's a series every Saturday, you know. So that's what they was going to see, I guess. When Papa got struck by lightning. Because they already had me named.
I don't know that I've ever known anyone else named Echo. Have you ever come across anyone else?
No. I haven't.
It's a special name for a special lady.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again.
Niece, Janelle. His name Janelle Echo. She was, you might have heard her. She was a travel Cherokee Council woman.
Okay. So one or two others.
Yeah. One niece named Echo.
Okay. I think it's a good name. I like it.
I like it.